Michael Peterson was a military vet and novelist. He was the father of 2 boys, 2 adopted girls, and stepfather to another girl. He was married to Kathleen Peterson. They lived together with their blended family in a Durham, North Carolina mansion. On December 9th, 2001, Michael and Kathleen were home alone, having drinks by the pool after dinner. That night, Michael called 911 because Kathleen was on the ground near the bottom of a staircase, bleeding to death. Inside that staircase, blood everywhere. Michael says he doesn't know what happened to her, but prosecutors charged him with murder. He was convicted at trial, but that was just the beginning of his legal battle, which the public has watched unfold through the years because of the enormously successful documentary, The Staircase. Today, Michael Peterson is no longer in prison, and the man who got him out, his attorney, David Rudolph, joins us tonight to talk about the trial, the documentary, and the brand new HBO series that everyone is talking about, also called The Staircase.
We have a special hour in store for you tonight right here. Anyone who has seen the Michael Peterson trial, the Staircase documentary, or the new show on HBO, you want to sit down and get ready. You're going to learn a lot more about the case tonight. You know, through the years here at Court TV, I've covered literally hundreds of trials, some of them super high profile, really big, some of them taking months, some of them just taking a couple of days. You know, from coast to coast, north, south, east, west, all around the country, covering our system of justice. I've also covered several trials involving Petersons, okay? And you recognize all those faces, right? Last night we were talking about Scott Peterson. He's fighting to get a new trial. Drew Peterson, who was convicted of murdering one ex-wife. Meanwhile, his wife at the time also missing, but never charged with that murder. And there's Michael Peterson, who was actually my first Peterson that I ever covered. He was a novelist down in Durham, accused of the murder of his wife. His case, though, of all the cases I've covered through the years, his is the one that everyone wants to know about. When I'm walking somewhere, people either recognize me or friends of mine. They're always asking me, you know, what happened on that staircase? And it's amazing because this has been going on for years. Years and years and years talking about this case. And it was a fascinating trial. It was more twists than you've ever seen in any case we've ever covered. Passionate representation on both sides, and cameras like everywhere. Like everywhere there were cameras for this case. And the reason everyone asked me about it really is because of the documentary that was done. You know, a lot of those cameras were part of a French film crew that created this amazing documentary that first came out. To tell you how long ago it came out, I think it was first released on like a disc. Remember those little discs you used to put in to watch movies? So it was released there, but then there were so many developments in the case that Netflix eventually turned it into a docuseries and redistributed it. And I mean, millions and millions and millions of people from around the world are all talking and continue to talk about the staircase. I remember the staircase because I was literally on the staircase. Take a look. This is the staircase where Kathleen Peterson died that night. If you look at the bottom of the stairs, you can still see the blood stains. Now, the prosecution says these stains are evidence of murder, but the defense says these same stains are evidence of a tragic accident. All right, I look a little different, but again, it was years ago. Now, Michael Peterson's 2003 trial was the subject of that docuseries by French filmmaker Jean-Xavier de Lestrade. I think I'm saying that right. It was called The Staircase. The 8-episode series was first released in 2004, and additional episodes were added in 2013 and 2018 as Michael Peterson's story continued to change. Eventually, all 13 episodes became part of the Netflix streaming service.
911, where's your emergency?
My wife had an accident. She's still breathing.
What kind of accident?
Still downstairs.
Kathleen Peterson was found dead at the bottom of the couple's staircase.
Peterson's husband is novelist Michael Peterson.
The cop was on me instantly.
There was sufficient evidence to warrant a trial.
The injuries are not consistent with a fall down the stairs.
All right, if a compelling, acclaimed docuseries isn't enough, this year, HBOMax released a drama series based on the case, also entitled The Staircase.
My wife, she had an accident.
What kind of accident?
She fell down the stairs. No, she's not breathing.
There were 35 cuts and bruises and 7 deep lacerations to the scalp.
Someone's holding something caused the impact to make these wounds. Make any adjustments you see fit. It's a witch hunt.
And it's amazing that they made a dramatic version of it because the actual trial was beyond dramatic. Now, following the release of the HBO Max series, Michael Peterson did an interview on the British television program This Morning, where he was asked if he had actually watched this new show.
With Kathleen, she died. I was there when she died. I do not, and definitely do not want to watch a fictionalized account seeing her die 3 times. And I know my children wouldn't even touch that.
Want to bring in our special guest for this hour. Joining me now in Charlotte, North Carolina, lead attorney. You recognize him. He represented Michael Peterson. David Rudolph is with us. David, great to see you.
Vinny, I'm looking at your hair, and you're gray, and I'm not. So how do you account for that?
Well, your beard is a little bit lighter than it once was.
No, my beard is a little lighter.
I don't know. I think I worry more than you do. So can you believe that we're here this many years later and the world is still talking about the case and now, it's happening again? It's unbelievable because, I get a little piece of it. You must be absolutely bombarded now.
Well, this case sort of changed the entire arc of my life, is the truth. So I feel like I'm in the never-ending story. It's the gift that keeps on giving, I guess.
Okay, so when I heard that HBO was doing this, I was like, wow, well, who's going to play David Rudolph? So I initially thought, if we take a look on the screen, that this would be perfect. I don't know if you can see the screen, but I
can see it.
You guys kind of look alike, but they didn't go with Brad Pitt. They went with Michael Stuhlbarg, who is playing. We take a look at him, and okay, they made him look a little bit more like you.
I gave him the glasses I used during the trial. I think that's what does it.
Fascinating. So, from your perspective, having someone like you're a lawyer, like we're lawyers. This has got to be really strange to see yourself portrayed in some dramatic series.
It is surreal at times. It's particularly surreal when they have me doing things that I never did. That's a little bit hard to accept. But it's even surreal when they have me in court. And I have to say that the courtroom scenes are better than the other scenes in terms of being accurate. But even then, it's hard to watch somebody playing you.
So Michael Stuhlbarg is the actor. He played you in the series The Staircase. And in an interview with Awards Radar's Stephen Pruskowski, Stuhlbarg gives his take on who you are.
And I believe he did a remarkable job in defending Michael, protecting Michael, and poking holes in the prosecution's case. David is an exemplary practitioner of what criminal justice defense lawyers do.
And I think he's parroting and echoing what a lot of people are saying and have been saying for years, even before The Staircase. But did you spend any time with him beforehand? Did he want to get figure out who you are so he could better portray you?
I did, and I've got to give Michael a lot of credit because he was interested and wanted to talk. He came to Charlotte. We spent a day and a half together. And he didn't just want to sort of mimic my mannerisms, although I'm sure he studied that. But he wanted to hear about what made me tick. You know, what led me to where I am today? What were the influences? What motivates me? You know, what do I hope to accomplish? So he interviewed me really in depth for, you know, hours and hours. He took lots of notes. And I think he was really concerned about trying to get it right. And I was really concerned that the major thing I talked to him about was that I felt like the staircase made a lot of progress in showing people what criminal defense lawyers actually do, as opposed to how we're portrayed on Law and Order. And I think the staircase did a really good job of busting those myths.
And you're talking about the documentary, though, the documentary, The Staircase, or the HBO?
Yeah, the documentary.
Gotcha.
And so my concern when I was talking with Michael Stolberg was, please don't do anything that's going to sort of resurrect those stereotypes. And I think he was concerned about not doing that within the context of the script, which he had to work with, which at times was just not accurate.
And so, talk to me about that. You've watched the series and you've seen the episodes, and so
I have.
So what's your takeaway? Like, what are they getting wrong? And what direction is this series going in that you think might give people a wrong impression on what happened? Because some people may only watch the HBO series.
And that's my concern, really, because I think they will get some fundamentally wrong impressions. But let me, if I have the time, let me tell you what I thought was not accurate about the portrayal of me as a lawyer, and then we can talk about some other things. So, you know, the opening scenes of me and Michael are me meeting Michael in a diner in Durham eating a pastrami sandwich. Now, you know as well as I do that there were no such diners in Durham selling pastrami sandwiches in 2001. They didn't exist, and that's not where I would meet a client. So that was just sort of wrong, and I think, you know, the idea was to sort of say to the audience, oh, see, this is a Jewish guy from New York who's down in Durham. You know, they could have just come out and said that, but in any event. Then they showed me and Tom Maher in the grand jury room when the prosecutor is presenting the evidence to get an indictment against Michael. You and I both know that never happens anywhere in the country. We're never in the grand jury room. I don't know where that came from. So that was just inaccurate. Then they showed Michael's brother calling me on the phone saying that they were selling the furniture in the house in order to pay my fees for the appeal. That was completely false. You know, I mean, Tom Maher represented Michael on appeal as a court-appointed lawyer. I represented him for 14 years after the trial. I never asked him for a penny. I covered my own expenses. You know, to suggest that somehow defense lawyers are willing to have their clients sell their furniture in order to pay us our fees was just offensive to me. So, you know, those are some of the things that I personally didn't care for. With regard to Michael, the series basically posited that he had told me just 4 weeks before trial about the death in Germany. That was completely false. I had learned about that a year before. I had gone to Germany with my investigator. We had investigated what happened in Germany. So that sort of created the impression that Michael was hiding things from me, which was really unfair because that he never, ever did. And then finally, and most egregiously, the series portrayed the director, Jean de Lestrade, and one of the editors, Sophie Brunet, as selectively editing the documentary to allegedly help Michael on his, quote, appeal. That was completely false. As a matter of fact, my agreement with them was that they couldn't show any of the documentary publicly until all appeals were over. And the truth is that Sophie Burnett didn't edit any of the courtroom scenes, and that's what they were claiming she had selectively edited. Another editor, Scott Stevenson, did all that editing, and she had nothing to do with the final cut of those first 8 episodes. And what that did is attack Jean's integrity as a filmmaker, as a documentarian. That, I think, is really unfair and really unfortunate for the documentary, because if somebody watches just the HBO series, now they're going to think, well, the documentary was it was all a puff piece. You know, it was all smoke and mirrors for Peterson. Not true. There was lots of stuff in there, and you know this, Vinny, lots of stuff in there that was devastating to Peterson. You know, the gay sex, all the stuff in Germany, Fred's closing argument. There was lots and lots of stuff in there that was devastating, that they didn't sugarcoat. And there was stuff they left out, like the Army CID agent who went to the scene in Germany and saw no blood, who testified to that at the trial. I mean, you were there. That doesn't show up in the documentary. So, to say, did they have to make cuts? Did they have to make decisions? Absolutely. They had 700 hours of video. But did they do it in a way that favored one side or the other? Well, if you watch the documentary, I think most people come away thinking, I don't know what to think. I don't know whether he did it or he didn't do it. So
people would come to me, what do you think happened? People are at the end of the documentary. And the other problem with the series, I guess now, is you've got all these people driving around Durham looking for a pastrami sandwich.
Exactly, which I think they probably still don't sell there.
Unbelievable. So, a lot of times in these dramatizations of whether it's a police show or a legal show, they'll ask for like some technical advisors. And were there any conversations by the makers of the series that maybe they want to bring you on board or bring someone on board to make it a little more accurate, especially when it comes to courtroom, grand jury, things like that?
I offered.
You did?
I've been talking to Antonio Campos for years about this. And when I heard that it was finally going to be made, I called him and I said, listen, the only thing I care about is getting the courtroom scenes right, getting the legal stuff right. That's all I care about. So I'm happy. You don't have to pay me. I'm happy to go over the script. If there's something wrong, I'll tell you. You can check what I'm saying. It's not about the substance. It's about the process. And he said, no. HBO doesn't want you to have anything to do with this. I said, okay. There's a lawyer in Atlanta, Drew Findling.
Oh, yeah.
Who is a great lawyer. Call Drew. Let Drew look at all this stuff so that he can tell you what's right and wrong. They never called Drew. So whoever vetted this for them on the legal stuff, they had no one or they didn't know what they were doing, because to put a defense lawyer in the grand jury room while the prosecutor is presenting evidence, it's ludicrous. And any lawyer watching that is going to immediately say, well, that's stupid. Let's just turn this off.
Yeah.
So it's self-defeating, really.
And while you're in the grand jury room, you're not going to get a pastrami sandwich, but you can get a ham sandwich, right? Because you can.
They'll indict a ham sandwich.
That's right. It goes like that. All right.
That's
David Rudolph is with us the whole hour. We've covered so far the HBO series. When we come back, I want to talk about the docuseries, and also coming up next hour.
In St. Louis County, Missouri, 9-year-old Christian Ferguson disappeared in 2003. He has never been found. His father says he was kidnapped during a carjacking, but prosecutors have a whole different idea about what happened, and they have charged DeJuan Ferguson with the murder of his son. Today in court, shocking testimony from from Christian's sister.
Was there a reason why you would tell your mother that Christian was being cared for and fed by his father at that time?
Yeah, the same reason that I told DFS on many occasions what he wanted me to tell them, because I was being abused.
Get your real deal at drivetime.com.
Ms. Clerk, if you will take the verdict.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are returning the following verdict. State of North Carolina versus Michael Alford Peterson, file number 01CRS 24821. We, the 12 members of the jury, unanimously find the defendant to be guilty of first-degree murder. This the 10th day of October 2003, signed by foreperson Christian Lyon Jones. Is this your verdict, so say you all?
Yes. That was Michael Peterson's verdict being read back in 2003. We covered it right here on Court TV. That trial and the legal battles that followed for years were the subject of the Netflix docuseries entitled The Staircase. And take a look here. The team of documentary filmmakers began following Michael Peterson after his indictment and were given access to the courtroom and the lives of the family involved in the case. It's something that, unlike anything I've ever seen. And I remember being in the courtroom, and there was like in the corner, they built like this structure, and there was a little hole in it. And I think there were 2 photographers in there, and you wouldn't notice that they were there until when they went out of, the judge would take everyone off the record, the door would open and there'd be like cameramen and women walking all through the courtroom. It was amazing. What I didn't realize, though, was all the access that they had behind the scenes that David Rudolph, Michael Peterson's attorney, gave to them that he didn't give to me. Well, you know, David Rudolph is with us, but apparently didn't trust me like you trusted the French filmmakers.
Well, with good reason, Vinny.
Exactly. No, that's good reason. So explain to folks watching, like, why you permitted it and why Michael, your client, Michael Peterson, allowed these filmmakers behind. I mean, we don't go there. Like cameras and the media, we just don't go there.
Well, we had very different reasons and objectives. For Michael, he just felt like the odds were stacked against him in Durham. He felt like he had been writing negative articles about these people for years and years, and that the DA and the police department were going to be out to get him, and that having a documentary film crew that had literally just won the Academy Award for Best Documentary with a film called Murder on a Sunday Morning, in Durham filming everything might keep the prosecutor and the police more honest. So that was Michael's reason for doing it. Mine was very different. You know, when I first met these fellas, what impressed me was that they weren't much interested in, did Michael do it? Did he not do it? You know, what was the evidence against him? What was the evidence that we had? They wanted to do a study of the American criminal justice system. And Murder on a Sunday Morning was a study of the American criminal justice system from the perspective of a poor black defendant with a court-appointed lawyer, a public defender. They then wanted to do another documentary about the American criminal justice system to see how it worked on the opposite end of the spectrum, with a defendant who could afford to hire his or her own attorney, who had the means to defend themselves. So that was their goal. And that, it came across really clearly to me that that's what they wanted to do. And for me, as I said earlier, I was just tired of watching criminal defense lawyers be falsely cast as these sleazebags, you know, getting drunk every night, selling their clients down the river. You've seen it all on Law and Order. You know, they're horrible. And I was just tired of it. And I just decided, you know what? I'm going to let people see what we really do. you know, that we're honest, that we're ethical, that we're trying to get the truth from our perspective, that we perform a valuable function. And so that was my perspective. That's why I was going to let them do all this stuff. But I also had to protect attorney-client privilege. So, for example, they had to send their film over to France every night so that the prosecutor couldn't just issue a subpoena and get a hold of it.
Wow.
They had to promise that they weren't going to release any footage until all appeals were over, because I didn't know how the trial was going to turn out, nor did I know how the documentary was going to turn out. So I took some steps to protect Michael's attorney-client privilege, but then at the end of the day, when I watched the documentary, it wasn't all favorable to Michael, but on balance, I thought it was fair. I thought it did a really good job explaining the process, and I didn't see anything in there that hurt Michael from an attorney-client privilege perspective. Now, would any American documentary filmmaker have agreed to those conditions? I doubt it. And if they hadn't, I wouldn't have done the film. It was really simple. You know, for me, those were deal breakers. And if they didn't want to agree, that was okay with me. We would just go ahead without it. But they did agree, and we end up with what I think is probably a totally unique perspective on a criminal trial. And I'm not sure that you'll ever see it again, to be honest.
I don't think so. Were there any times where you had to tell them, like, turn the camera off, like, you guys got to get out of here?
Never.
Really?
Now, I didn't invite them to everything I did. You know, I mean, if I was going to have a meeting with the family that was, you know, about personal stuff, I might not have invited them. But everything that related to the defense, for example, my meeting with the experts, you see a whole sequence about all that. The good facts, bad facts meeting with a bunch of people sort of throwing out what the good facts are and the bad facts. Our strategy about what motions we were going to file and when we were going to file them. All of that stuff, the stuff that related to what I was doing as a defense lawyer, all was in the documentary. And not only did I never have to throw them out, but never did they say to me, hey, David, can you do that again? Or Michael, can you say that with a little more feeling? It never once. It was fly on the wall. And I think you can tell that from watching it. You see me going off on my own person the night before opening statement when he's getting the PowerPoint wrong. I mean, that wasn't a really attractive thing for me, you know, to watch myself. But it was real. I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah, this was, you know, we watch reality television, which is not reality. This was like real. All right. When we come back, we've talked about the HBO series. We've talked about the documentary. But before all of that, there was an actual trial right here on Court TV with some amazing moments like the legendary Dr. Henry Lee.
A fairly large drop, which would indicate a low force, which would be like gravity. And what it indicates to me is that someone with blood on them over this step caused that stain.
Dwayne Devers, he was the star witness for prosecutors, the expert explaining the blood evidence in this case. And there was a lot of blood in that staircase, and that's what needed to be explained. And Dwayne Devers, really the key to the prosecution's case in getting the conviction at trial. Turns out Dwayne Devers was also the key to the defense case in getting the conviction overturned, because it turns out that Dwayne Devers has some problems with falsifying results. As an expert, you can't do that. I mean, you cannot do that. You do that, it's over. And anything you've touched is tainted, literally. I want to bring back in David Rudolph, the man who represented Michael Peterson. At the trial, David, did you have any idea or suspicion about Dwayne Devers and what he was up to in falsifying results?
Absolutely. And as you know, I cross-examined him for hours and hours. I had, every textbook on blood spatter. I would, ask him questions. I would impeach him with what was in the treatises. And he would just say, well, I disagree with that. I disagree with that. He insisted on his experience, that he had been to hundreds of scenes, dozens of falls, on and on and on. And let me just say that when we finally got to 2011 and I could prove that he was lying, what the judge found was that Dwayne Dever had, quote, perjured himself. So it wasn't just little things. He perjured himself, and the judge found that. And what happened to Dwayne Dever as a result of his perjury? Absolutely nothing. And that's the problem with expert testimony in criminal cases.
Now, let's get to the trial, some of the evidence, because, people that have watched the series or watched the documentary or watched the trial on demand on Court TV, a lot of questions about the blood and where it could all come from. You had one of your own experts, world-renowned forensic expert, Dr. Henry Lee. Let's take another look at one of the demos that he did for the jury.
The individual did not die right away. Person can sneezing, coughing, wheezing, variety action. I'm not going to drink the ink. We made some ketchup. I can cough. Look away, medium velocity. You see the blood dripping, the ketchup dripping the blood, what create how much secondary responder already. So that can create medium velocity blood.
So David, what, because I was on that stair, I mean, there was a lot of blood there. And for a person just walking up and down that staircase with those stains there, you're gonna say something terrible happened here. And I would say something criminal happened here. What possible explanations and how could all that blood get there under circumstances that aren't murder?
Well, Vinny, what's interesting is that sort of misses the point, because the amount of blood that was there was way more than you would normally have in even a beating death. She had 7 lacerations. And, it wasn't like she had a slaughtered neck. Her carotid arteries weren't severed. She didn't bleed out from some huge spurting artery. She bled out from her scalp. And everybody agreed that was the cause of death, loss of blood. And if you look at the wounds were all to her scalp. It's the most vascularized part of your body. It bleeds incredibly. And she was alive for some extended period of time in that staircase, moving around, as Henry said, coughing. The blood was in her hair. She was shaking her head. She was disoriented. She was slightly drunk. She had taken diazepam. And so there was a lot of blood there, and it couldn't be explained really by any mechanism. It was the blood came from the wounds, and the question was, what caused the wounds? And I recognize that you look at that and you say, oh my God, it's terrible, something bad happened here. But what happened was there was a lot of blood, and what caused the flow of blood was really the issue.
So obviously, after the docuseries, a lot of people were talking about the owl. So the owl was not a part of the trial, though. I do remember, though, there was a man who was kind of walking around outside the courthouse. Anyone whose ear he could grab, including mine, would talk about this owl. And I was like, what is he talking about? Did you consider an owl theory? Do you think it's plausible now? Like, how plausible? Because honestly, you know, the first time I heard it, I thought it was ridiculous.
As did I. And the first time I heard it was the weekend before closing argument, when Larry Pollard came to my office and told me he had just spoken to the district attorney, and the district attorney had thrown him out of his office. And now he was coming to me with his theory that the wounds on Kathleen Peterson's head were in fact from an owl's talons. And he wanted me to argue that in closing argument. And I said, Larry, I'm sorry, but the facts are in. There's no evidence about owls. I couldn't argue it even if I wanted to. And I can't, because I just spent the last 3 months talking about how this was all the result of a fall. So Larry was very disappointed in my reaction. I thought it was ridiculous at the time. Larry really didn't have any supporting evidence for it. But then a few years later, lo and behold, 2 men get attacked by an owl in Fuquay Varina, which is, like 20 minutes away from Durham. And it's on video, and there's pictures. And now all of a sudden people start saying, well, maybe that wasn't so weird. And now he's getting experts, real experts, to say, you need to understand about these barred owls. They attack people. They're aggressive. And then you get on the internet now. We didn't have it in 2003, but you Google owls attacking people, and you have literally scores of videos and photos and stories about owls that have attacked people's heads. So, as time has gone on, the theory has become much more credible. And then I go back and I look at the evidence, and I see that there are drops of blood on the porch leading to the front door. Had no idea how those had gotten there. I assumed it must have come off Michael when he was, looking for the EMTs to arrive. There's a smear of blood on the front door. Assumed that was from Michael. There was a feather or feathers in her hair. I assumed that there must have been a down pillow somewhere in the house. There was a little evergreen twig on the staircase. I assume, well, that must have come from them putting up the Christmas tree that day. So there were all these little, none of her injuries were consistent with a beating. She didn't have any subdural hematomas. She didn't have any fractured skull. None of the bones in her face were fractured. None of her hands were fractured. There was nothing consistent with a beating death. And I'm sure you were in court when I pulled out all the autopsies from the preceding 10 years, and the only one that had none of those injuries were hers.
I remember that.
So, when you look at all that stuff and you start putting it together, can I say that explains what happened? No, I can't say that. But can I say that that's plausible? It's certainly a lot more plausible than a blow poke in that narrow staircase. That never made any sense.
I can almost picture you making this argument if the case was going to be retried, which it will not be. Okay. David Rudolph, when we come back, people have questions. You're going to give them the answers. That's next. In Los Angeles, California, big developments in the trial of the man accused of murdering hip-hop legend Nipsey Hussle. Eric Holder was in a holding cell waiting to be brought back into court when he was brutally beaten by another inmate. Why did this happen, and will it compromise the murder trial?
March 31st, 2019, at about 3:20 in the afternoon, there was an explosion of violence at the intersection of Slauson and Crenshaw.
Both victims found at the bottom of the stairway. Large amount of blood was present both scenes. Both victims are female. Both victims in mid-40s. Both victims had close personal relationship with the defendant. Both reported severe headaches before death. The time of day was similar. They both had socialized with Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson was the last known person to see both of them alive. Do you really believe that lightning strikes twice in the same place? Do you? Do you really believe that this is a huge coincidence? Maybe you do.
Freda Black, the fiery prosecutor from the Staircase murder trial. David Rudolph, Michael Peterson's attorney, still with us. Got a bunch of questions from viewers. We begin with Kimberly, who is asking, is the HBO series more accurate than the Netflix series? Was Sophie really his love interest?
The answer to the first question is no. It is much less accurate. Sophie did have a relationship with Michael after the series aired, but it was well after the series first aired.
Allison's question tonight, on the Diane Fanning book, there was a mention of a 16-year secret. Was the 16-year secret the death of Margaret Radcliffe or his bisexuality? At the end of the documentary, Michael Peterson said he and Kathleen would have worked that out, his bisexuality, but he maintained throughout the trial she knew about his bisexuality. Which one is it?
I don't know. I have no idea. Everybody can make their own decisions about that. I know what Michael has said. That's all I know.
Terry tonight, please ask him to clear up rumors found online that he actually disliked Michael and tried several times to remove himself from the case. Also, was he compensated for all the legal work done on his behalf?
First of all, it's absolutely false that I dislike Michael. I actually was fond of Michael, although a lot of people don't like him. He and I got along very, very well. At one point, I told him in 2014 that if the case was going to have to be retried, I couldn't do it because I was living in Charlotte, 200 miles away. But I found him an attorney who could do it. That attorney ended up having a stroke. No, I didn't charge him a penny for any of the work I did after 2003. Not a cent.
That's amazing, because there's a lot of work that was done. Andrea, here we go. Did the owl do it? And how about this? From 0 to 10, 10 being you could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, 0 being, motion to dismiss. Did the owl do it?
7.
7. That wins a civil case. All right. Elizabeth tonight, please ask him, how is it possible that he's been present where 2 women fell down the stairs?
And the answer is the second woman didn't fall down the stairs. She had a brain aneurysm. Where she was right at the doorway when she went into the house. So you could say she was found at the bottom of the stairs, or you could say she was found at the front door. Either way, so you can play it either way, but there was no evidence that she fell down the stairs. The evidence always was that she had a brain aneurysm and died from that.
Carol tonight, I'd like to know if the children are still in contact with him. Also, are all the kids in contact, or are they still estranged? Have there been any interviews with Michael since?
Well, first of all, he's not in touch with Caitlin and hasn't been since the DA and the medical examiner turned her against him. With regard to the other 4 children, he's very much in contact with all of them. They're all in contact with each other. It's actually a very, very close-knit family, and that's another big problem with the HBO series. It portrays them in a very different light, and Michael is really upset about that.
David Rudolph, thank you so much. This has been an amazing hour. We'll talk again real soon.
Thanks, Vinny. I always like being on.